All aboard the Cam Cook hype train. There's still time, if you haven't done so yet, to hop on the Cam Cook bandwagon. We'll talk about all that and more next on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe wherever it is you get your podcasts for free and available on every podcast platform. Thank you for making the show your first listen. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. A lot of great deals happening in the summer. They're giving boost and bonuses to their customers every day, and then football's right around the corner. So great time to join FanDuel or download the FanDuel app. I want to start today's show by talking about Cam Cook. So Kendal Briles spoke with the media on Wednesday. Dana Holgorsen and Todd Graham actually spoke with the media on Thursday. So hearing from a lot of these coaches over the past few days, which is awesome. We did a deep dive kind of on the things that Andy Avalos said earlier in the week in yesterday's show. And there was a lot in Kendall's media session that was informative, but one thing that I think will get people excited is he says Cam Cook's a dude. Like, he says he's really a guy. And, you know, Vince Pryor commented yesterday, he was like, listen, none of this matters until the game starts. Like, they're just trying to sell tickets at this moment. I totally understand that. Like, yeah, the coaches are not going to go out there and say things that are just overtly negative about their football team. But it does feel like, whether it's J.P. Richardson earlier this offseason, there are multiple players and coaches. Sonny Dykes said in an interview with 365, he was like, hey, we had a lot of questions about running back going into spring ball. We came out of spring ball and felt really good about where we were. And his name has consistently come up from different people and different sources and saying, listen, this is a guy that can play, that can be a force, and can run the ball effectively. And one thing that Kendall brought up about his game is he does a really good job of getting what he called the dirty yards, which I think this was also something that Monty Bailey excelled at last year too. But the idea of, okay, on 1st and 10, there's not a lot there. Instead of getting thrown for a 1-yard loss or getting stopped for no gain, can you stick your foot in the ground? Can you get north and south and get 2 or 3 yards to put your offense in a more manageable situation? Those are small, minute details that don't show up much in the stat sheet. They're not going to help your yards per carry, but they mean something when we talk about winning. This offense was off schedule a lot last year, whether it be because of turnovers, penalties, negative plays. They put themselves in bad situations, and they weren't a particularly explosive offense. Like, that's what they wanted to be, but it didn't really come together in a full circle way. And so they weren't the type of offense that could create on 1st and 25 and make up a chunk yardage plays on 2nd and 18. When Kendal Briles was down at Baylor and Art Briles was the head coach, they were always a heavily penalized team on both sides of the ball. But I think on offense, honestly, they didn't really think about it that much because they just felt like they could always go get big-time yardage if they needed to. And that wasn't the case last year for TCU football. But Cam Cook, really good player, has explosiveness, has that home run ability, according to the coaching staff, but also that ability to say, hey, let me just get what I can here and make sure this is a positive play and that we're moving in the right direction, even if it's not something that's going to show up on SportsCenter at the end of the night. But those are the types of plays you have to be a good football team. He also mentioned that the offensive line, it's coming together, a big part of the learning curve with that group. And I mentioned this potential issue this offseason is communication. And honestly, I mean, they had a lot of reps together in spring practice, but now they're shuffling around again. Remington Strickland is running with the ones at the moment. Cade Bennett and James Brockermeyer at that center spot, kind of duking it out. See who's going to win that battle. Eventually, though, they're gonna find the 5 guys that make sense for this offense. And a huge question mark is going to be how quickly can those players come together and work as a cohesive unit where they're setting the tone both in pass protection but also in the run game and making big plays in that regard as well. So, you know, positive signs from the O-line. We'll see what happens when they hit the field against Stanford. That communication is going to be key, though. Can you recognize extra rushers? Can you identify what type of formations the defense are in, how they're going to try to attack you? That's going to be a big deal this upcoming season for TCU. As far as Josh Hoover goes, okay, where is he at? He's healthy. We know that. He's been taking a lot of the reps he's been taking all the reps with the starters throughout fall camp. And Sonny Dykes said this as well, but Coach Briles said that he's doing a good job taking care of the football, making good decisions, which, I mean, those are small things, but you have to win the turnover battle this upcoming season. And Josh will be the first to admit there were some ugly turnovers last year. Kendal also said they've done a good job of not putting the ball on the ground. But if you're going to be throwing all over the place, you have to protect the football. And, you know, I think one thing from an intangible standpoint, energy, enthusiasm, all those things seem to bode well for this team with Josh Hoover as a signal caller. His presence on the field just felt like an immediate boost. And the offense bought in. We saw a brand new Savion Williams. We saw a more cohesive play on that side of the ball in general. And so, you know, he's going to bring that to the table. It's really just about cleaning up a lot of the mistakes, getting more consistent, understanding the offense better, and getting a lot of reps with these skill players he's going to be feeding the ball this upcoming season. Savion Williams, he did talk about the big wide receiver on the outside as well. And he said that it's been a good camp for him so far. And he just mentioned that last year, Savion was kind of out for spring practice. They were trying to make sure that he was healthy for the season. He had a family situation during fall camp as well last year, so he wasn't as involved as maybe he could have been typically during fall practice. Had a great reason for that, but still just wasn't there getting the reps. And Kendal was just like, yeah, it showed. I mean, his lack of practice time was just apparent. But the Texas game, everyone keeps coming back to that because that's where we saw glimpses of what that guy could be. And this feels like the year where, you know, it could come all together. And I know there are people that might kind of tune that out and be like, well, we've said that for a long time. I will say, though, you know, Quentin Johnston showed more flashes. And going into his final year, like, he was the type of dude that everybody was saying, hey, if he really does show something, that's going to be a first-round pick, like a day 1, day 2 NFL draft pick. And he had the game against Oklahoma, and really from the moment he stepped on campus as a freshman, he was a factor. But he also dealt with injuries, had some inconsistent quarterback play, all those things. And so he had similar questions going in his big season and was able to do things really well. You know, one thing that they've made a point of, though, to say lately is that they're trying to find creative ways to get the ball in Savion Williams' hands. And I did a segment about this a few weeks ago where I was like, I really love what he brings in the quick passing game. Like, he's an effective blocker too, but getting the ball to him on the boundary, he's so physical and he doesn't mind lowering his shoulder. Like, he can get positive yardage and he's not easy to bring down. And they've also talked about putting him in the backfield at times, like moving him around the formation. They're going to try to find ways to put the ball in his hands and to allow him to go do his thing. And I think that really bodes well for TCU this upcoming year, because last season I just didn't feel like there was a great emphasis on getting playmakers of football. Now, part of that was they just constantly had guys in and out of the lineup due to injury. You know, Jalen Robinson had some moments, but he was in and out of practice. Jack Besh was banged up really all year long. Savion, the first half of the year, wasn't fully there. So the list goes on as far as guys that just didn't have the opportunity to kind of build chemistry with the quarterback, and the quarterback changed midseason, and so all that threw a wrench in everything as well. Another funny thing, you know, one intriguing aspect of doing a podcast multiple times a week is that you just get to throw a lot of opinions and takes out there, and it doesn't take long for somebody to come around and basically say, nah, you were wrong about that. So yesterday I kind of went on this, not a rant, but I was just like, man, it's really interesting to see how college football is changing and all the preparation that's involved, all the technology we have, and all that's true. But I also said, teams are preparing more than ever. And I talked about how Andy Avalos mentioned they've been working on preparation for Stanford since the summer. Like they're installing the defense, they're trying to get all the concepts ready, but they're also slowly giving the guys a glimpse of, okay, this is what you're going to see. These are the types of formations you're going to see. This is what you have to be prepared for this upcoming season. And then Kendall, the same day, was like, no, we haven't prepared for Stanford at all. I think Richard Berry on YouTube commented about this. He was like, actually, I saw that Kendall hasn't prepared for Stanford at all yet. So I guess just a different approach. He says they're going to start that next week, really getting after it as far as preparing for that game. But so far, they've just been kind of focusing on themselves, trying to get things down, get better. He likes what the tight end room could bring this year. Drake Dabney coming over from Baylor. Chase Curtis might be a name to know. You know, Chase has had some good moments over the past few years. Hasn't been as involved in offense as maybe they would like. And then last season dealt with an injury. But, yeah, don't sleep on him. I mean, I think Drake Dabney is going to be a huge factor catching the football. But Chase Curtis also a guy that they like. And then he mentioned some of the young guys, DJ Rogers, and others who could get in the mix this year as well. So that's a spot where replacing Jared Wiley is going to be a hard thing to do. I think Jared's going to have a really good season with the Chiefs if he can find a role there. But they've got some players who can step up and be productive for sure. As far as pace goes, he says they're going to keep the same pace, wouldn't expect anything less. Now, the helmet communication and some of the NFL rules that are coming into play now could potentially slow them down just naturally, but if they can push the pace, that's what they want to do. So don't expect an offense to come in there and huddle up a lot and really, as I've said before, try to play complementary football. Like they want to get after it and run a lot of plays. And then Haas Haney, he said Haas is getting a lot of reps. He's got a good deep ball, can really throw the ball, good velocity on his throws, and he's a dynamic player. And as far as his role this year, he didn't really give much away. He said they're still kind of deciding what his role is. I would love to get the ball in his hands, you know, just about every game at some point. And I would think the best way to do that would be in some sort of specialized package. I don't want to split him out wide. I mean, maybe you can occasionally do that, but that stuff doesn't really interest me. If he had a small package of plays, though, that they could run in different times, then I feel like that could be really good for this offense. But we'll see what they do. I'm just at the point where, like, some people worry about red shirts. I'm like, I don't even know why you're concerning yourself about that. I mean, as a coach, I guess you have to a certain extent. But honestly, like, if you don't play these guys, there's a decent chance they leave. I think it's a different situation with Haas because of who he is and what his background is and just the fact that he kind of knows, like, okay, this is where I'm at in the depth chart. But, man, I don't really think you can concern yourself too much with red shirts and eligibility in this day and age in college football because everyone is sort of year to year potentially off to the next place. Okay, when we come back, Dana Holgorsen also spoke with the media, and he delved into his role. He's working with Andy Avalos closely, so we'll talk more about that and what that means here on Locked on Horned Frogs. Your team, we do it here every day. Well, I mentioned them at the top of the show, our friends from FanDuel. They're here to help you make money. Don't you want to do that? You're obsessed with sports. You love it. You want it to last all year long, but in reality, it doesn't. The playoffs have wound down. We got some great Olympic action going on right now, but by and large, nothing really happening besides Major League Baseball. But it's a perfect time to join FanDuel because this is still going on. They're still giving all their customers boost and bonuses every day this summer. Again, that's daily boost or bonuses. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. That's the FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. FanDuel is the official betting partner of Major League Baseball. They're also a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com. Boost or bonuses on a daily basis all summer long, and then plenty of football to start betting on and getting involved with as we get closer to the season. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. FanDuel, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Thank you for making Locked On Horned Frogs your first listen of the day. If you want to have a second listen right after this, go on over to Locked On College Football. That's the podcast with Spencer McLaughlin, who gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and its ever-changing landscape, conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, new college football, expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Dana Holgorsen, he is one of the big personalities who is part of this coaching staff. But I will say, listening to Dana talk, and kind of a similar thing with Todd Graham, it's fair to wonder, like, man, that's a lot of coaches that have sort of been known for being prickly to work with through the years. How is Sonny going to manage all that? In Dana's case, he was like, look, I'm just a consultant. He's there to consult. He's there really like in part to help himself and to learn. He's working with the defensive coaching staff, and he's trying to get a feel for, okay, what are they doing? How are they attacking offenses? What's their thought process like? What's their preparation look like on a week-to-week basis? So if he does get another head coaching opportunity, he can have a better feel for what that looks like in that side of the meeting room. But his main job is going to be working with Andy Avalos, and he's observing, seeing what they're doing. He's also doing advanced scouting for all the opponents on TCU's schedule. So he's scouting every offense that TCU is going to play this year, and he's going to give Coach Avalos and that defensive staff a lot of notes about, hey, these are their tendencies. This is what they want to do. This is how you can possibly attack it. These are some weaknesses. So it's good to have him part of this. And I think it's really shrewd what Sonny has done. He's going to have Todd Graham work with Kendall. He's going to have Dana work with Andy. And Holgorsen talked about how it's good getting a different set of eyes on things and kind of having that unique perspective being an offensive coach in a defensive room. But also there's the aspect of he was just like, nobody feels threatened. So nobody on the defensive coaching staff is like, oh man, Dana Holgorsen has, vying for our job, because he's not a defensive coach. That's not what he's known for. He's not trying to make a pivot to that. He really is just there to help them and be a resource for them. And he said on Saturdays he has no responsibilities. And he mentioned that he's going to do something that he hasn't done in 30 years, which is tailgate. So get your tailgate invitations ready at the Carter. Dana Holgorsen, he wants to be there. He wants to, experience the atmosphere, the pageantry of college football, and be a part of that this upcoming season. He also said he likes working with Sonny Dykes. He's known Sonny for a long time, and he really appreciates the way that Sonny handles the CEO aspect of the job now. There's so many kind of big picture things and things outside of coaching that coaches have to do. And in a moment of transparency, he was like, honestly, that's something that I didn't do super well, and it's something that I struggled with. Was he's a ball coach, and that's what, he wants to be very hands-on in the X's and O's and the day-to-day preparation. And that's becoming less and less in vogue with these coaches because there's just so many outside things that they have to worry about. And so that's an adjustment that he's trying to make, but also he's observing what Sonny does, and they've been friends for a long time and they have a good relationship. He says he thinks TCU has a lot of depth. He's impressed with just the physicality, the size of the team. And he says Andy Avalos is an intense guy that he's gotten to know through the years because they have the same agent. And so they've met each other in some like social situations through the years, but he's really sharp and he understands, how to coach a defense. He's very intense. And yesterday I just got the impression that this totally makes sense given who Sonny is and what he does. He's really just kind of letting Andy do his thing. So, that's his side of the ball, and it's his job to sort of be the head coach of the defense. And hopefully that works well, and they can meld those things together. He was also asking, I think Mac Engel asked this question about his famous moment with Trayvon Boykin, where Boykin on a third down, he juked like 6 or 7 West Virginia defenders, a couple of them behind the line of scrimmage. Anyway, he tiptoes the sidelines, he gets the first down, and he ends up just standing right in front of Dana Holgorsen. And Holgorsen just puts his hands out, and they high-five each other. And it was a really cool, it was very much Dana kind of just throwing his hands in the air and being like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, he just made a play. He literally juked everybody on our team. Like, there's nothing we're going to make happen in this moment. And so he just kind of congratulating Trey on the crazy moment. And he said it was very instinctual. It wasn't planned. He also mentioned that he caught a lot of flack from West Virginia folks about that. But one intriguing nugget in that story was that he said he saw Trayvon during spring practice. So I guess he's around the program in some capacity, which surprised me a little bit. But I mean, I'm glad that he still has a relationship where he can be there from time to time and just be around. And, you know, obviously he did so much during his time playing there and brought the team to new heights in a lot of ways. It's cool that he has the ability to kind of stay in contact with the university, at least somewhat. But Dana Holgorsen, I'm super excited about what he brings to the table. I think it's cool that he's working with the defense and he's going to do some advanced scouting with, you know, the offensive opponents that TCU is playing. And I'm excited to see kind of what he comes up with this upcoming year. When we come back, we'll get some of your reaction to wrap things up. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. Make sure you download the Gametime app if you need tickets. Gametime is the place to go. If you're thinking, man, I got to find a way to get up to Fort Worth this year, get to a ball game at the Carter, download the Gametime app. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's Locked On to get $20 off your first purchase. No hidden fees. They tell you exactly what you're going to pay when you click on the tickets. Also, they give you a great picture of what your view is going to be from your seat. Gametime app, it's super easy to navigate. You buy the tickets, it goes straight to your wallet. You don't have to wonder, where is it on my phone, all those things. Gametime, they make it simple for you. Best place to go as far as tickets go in the secondary market. Visit the Gametime app today. Download it. Gametime, they make it simple for you. Gametime is the best place to get tickets to concerts, football games, any sort of sporting event, whatever the case is. Gametime can make it happen for you. Download the Gametime app, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Before we go, I talked yesterday about Andy Avalos and his approach. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Richard Berry says on his long drive yesterday, he listened to him, Sonny, and Briles. And he said, unless I misunderstood them, it sounded like they all answered differently regarding preparation for Stanford. Yeah, so Andy's apparently already kind of gotten the ball rolling on that, and he said he started that back in the summer. And, yes, Kendall is going to start that next week. So they're all kind of taking different approaches, which is sort of weird to me. But I guess, you know, differences in the offense and defense and how they sort of go about it. But yes, they are taking different approaches to how they prepare, and hopefully it's just all unified and comes together when the season starts here in a few weeks. Vince Pryor says nothing matters until they play the first game. They're just selling tickets right now. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the rubber's going to meet the road here in a couple Friday nights when they play Stanford. And I think that's going to be a good test for them. But we had a lot of hype around this team last year, and we were wrong. Like, they did not end up being good. And so that was unfortunate. And you never know until you get hit and things get live and real how these players are going to respond. But I am hopeful that this can be a bounce back year for TCU football and for this coaching staff. Fernando says installing a new defense is key. Of course, players becoming confident and knowledgeable to the point of playing situational football at game speed is something else. Yes, I said yesterday, I still think there's going to be some growing pains. Andy Avalos says he believes the defense they're at 95% when it comes to install, but there's still some nuances with how they line up, depending on how offenses kind of attack them and what formations they're in that they have to cover. And then I agree with you. I mean, it's also about, can the players process it, live out the principles that they're being taught and be confident in it. That is the next step. And that's something we won't see until the game starts. So that's why I said there's going to be missed assignments, busted coverages, all those things, because it's different practicing it than actually seeing a team do it in real time on a Friday or Saturday night. We'll be back on Monday. Thank you for rocking with me this week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.